In 334 BC, a 20-year-old king from the mountainous fringes of Greece launched a campaign against the reigning superpower of the age. Persia commanded vast wealth and an army drawn from across Asia, while Alexander of Macedonia arrived with just 40,000 men. Alexander inherited a kingdom in chaos. His father, King Philip, had recently been murdered by his own bodyguard in a court conspiracy. To secure his throne and silence rivals in Macedonia, the young king needed an immediate, aggressive conquest abroad. At 20 years old, he was already a veteran commander and a student of Aristotle. Yet he stood at the start of his invasion carrying the full weight of his father's unfinished legacy and a fragile political position. He relied on a specific military machine, the Macedonian phalanx. These professional soldiers fought 16 ranks deep, wielding the sarissa, an 18-foot pike that created a dense wall of iron, keeping enemy forces at a lethal distance. Alexander entered Asia under the crushing weight of political necessity. Every victory was a calculated step towards stabilizing a kingdom that would have otherwise collapsed under the pressure of its own court rivalries. Alexander led from the front, often spearheading the companion cavalry in headlong charges at the strongest points of the enemy lines. This was a radical departure from the traditional role of a distant commander. At the Battle of Issus, Alexander spotted a gap in the Persian line. He led a ferocious cavalry assault straight into the center, shattering the enemy formation. Facing this violent assault, King Darius abandoned his army and fled the battlefield in his royal chariot, leaving his troops to be massacred. Surviving these near-suicidal charges against overwhelming odds, battle after battle, shifted Alexander's perspective. He began to internalize the idea that he might actually be unkillable. As the Persian army retreated, Alexander marched into Egypt. The population, exhausted by years of Persian rule, welcomed him as a liberator, crowning him pharaoh. From there, he took a highly unusual detour, marching hundreds of miles into the Libyan desert to visit the ancient and isolated oracle of Siwah. Within the temple, the priests officially proclaimed Alexander the son of Amun. To the people of Egypt, and soon to Alexander himself, he was now a living god. This divine validation shifted the objective of the entire campaign. Alexander began to view his conquests through a mythological lens, replacing the logistical goal of securing Greece with a perceived destiny to rule the entire earth. His growing cruelty manifested in the destruction of Persepolis. He ordered the ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire to be pillaged and burned, a calculated act of retribution that shocked his own generals. He later introduced proskynesis, the Persian custom of bowing face down before the king. To his Macedonian soldiers, this was blasphemy. They were free men, and they viewed this demand as a sign that their king had lost his connection to his own people. Paranoia took hold. Alexander executed the accused ringleader of an assassination plot, his cavalry commander Philotas. He then preemptively murdered Philotas's father, Parmenion, his most trusted general, to prevent any chance of retaliation. The dissent peaked during a drunken argument in Samarkand, where Alexander killed Cleitus the Black. Cleitus was a close friend and the very officer who had saved Alexander's life years earlier at the Granicus. The conviction and ruthlessness that made Alexander an unbeatable conqueror were the exact same traits that transformed him into a tyrant. He had become the very kind of absolute ruler he originally set out to dismantle. Alexander remained obsessed with pushing further east into India, driven by ancient myths of reaching the literal edge of the world. At the river Hypothus, the reality of human biology caught up with him. His army had marched thousands of miles over 8 years. Battered and exhausted, they mutinied and refused to go any further. Alexander was forced to turn back. He was never defeated by a superior army, but by the limits of human endurance and the sheer scale of the planet. He died at just 32 from a mysterious fever in Babylon. Without a clear successor, his generals immediately began fighting to carve out their own individual empires from his conquests. While his political borders vanished within a generation, Alexander's impact took the form of a massive cultural fusion. He integrated Greek science, art, and language into the heart of the East. This cultural collision is etched into the folds of the clothing on this statue of the Buddha, which utilizes a distinct Greco-Roman aesthetic developed in the wake of Alexander's path. Alexander's god complex destroyed his mind and his closest friends, but the cities he planted remained hubs of learning and trade for hundreds of years. He unified two worlds that would never truly separate again.